we got to show you this because if you remember back when we withdrew from Afghanistan, what's that been, a year and a half, almost 2 years now?
August of 21. Mm-hmm.
So the claim from the Biden administration, Biden himself, in fact, was that nobody could have done it any better. We did as good a job as you can possibly do with that. Surprisingly, some people who were there disagree with that. For instance, retired Lieutenant Colonel David Scott Mann, he wouldn't say any of this, of course, if he was still in the service. Yeah. But he wants to make sure we don't forget how botched that effort was.
Clip 9.
This whole thing has been a gutting experience. I never imagined I would witness the kind of gross abandonment followed by career-preserving silence of senior leaders, military and civilian. As a result of the way that we've left Afghanistan, we're on the front end of a national security crisis as 27 violent extremist groups are now operating on former NATO security bases with Taliban top cover.
Oh, my gosh.
And I think we're on the front end of a mental health tsunami. As 73% of our Afghan war veterans say they feel betrayed by how this war ended.
How many? 70?
Calls to the VA hotline have spiked 81% in the first year since the Afghan withdrawal, and they keep coming.
Man,
Yeah.
27 different groups operating on former NATO bases, is that what he said? I mean, he's right. We are on the front end of yet a whole new Pandora's box of terror.
Yeah, and that wasn't the guy I was thinking of. I was thinking of this Marine Corps Sergeant, Tyler Vargas-Andrews. He explained, this is cut 11. I want to play the whole thing because it's astounding. And he explained how he wanted to take out the suicide bomber from that horrible day when a suicide bomber blew up 13 of our Marines at the Kabul airport. So here's what he had to say.
He was spotted somewhere from noon to 1 p.m. by myself, then Sergeant Charles Schilling, and another. The anomaly in the crowd, who was clean-shaven and fit the description exactly, traveling with an older gentleman. The individual was consistently and nervously looking up at our position through the crowd. The older of the two wore a black silky hijab that was covering his face most of the time. They both had obvious mannerisms that go along with who we believed him to be. They handed out small cards to the crowd periodically, and the older man sat calmly and seemingly coached the bomber. Over the communication network, we passed that there was a potential threat and an IED attack imminent. This was as serious as it could get. I requested engagement authority while my team leader was ready on the M110 semi-automatic sniper system. The response, leadership did not have the engagement authority for us. Do not engage.
Oh, my God.
I requested for the battalion commander, Lieutenant Colonel Brad Whited, to come to the tower to see what we did. While we waited for him, psychological operations individuals came to our tower immediately and confirmed the suspect met the suicide bomber description. He eventually arrived and we showed him our evidence, the photos we had of the two men. We reassured him of the ease of fire on the suicide bomber. Pointedly, we asked him for engagement authority and permission. We asked him if we could shoot. Our battalion commander said, and I quote, "I don't know," end quote. Myself and my team leader asked very harshly, "Well, who does? Because this is your responsibility, sir." He again replied he did not know, but would find out. We received no update and never got our answer. Eventually, the individual disappeared. To this day, we believe he was a suicide bomber. We made everyone on the ground aware. Operations had briefly halted, but then started again. Plain and simple, we were ignored. Our expertise was disregarded. No one was held accountable for our safety. About 1730, Staff Sergeant Darren Hoover, friend and mentor, came to get me from the tower to go help find an Afghan interpreter in the crowd. We found the interpreter and his brother, born with American passports. They told us of 5 family members still in the canal. I stayed there waiting for the family members standing against a 2-foot canal wall. 10 minutes passed. Then a flash and a massive wave of pressure. I'm thrown 12 feet onto the ground, but instantly knew what had happened. I opened my eyes to Marines dead or unconscious lying around me. A crowd of hundreds immediately vanished in front of me, and my body was catastrophically wounded with 100 to 150 ball bearings now in it. Almost immediately, we started taking fire from the neighborhood, and I saw how injured I was with my right arm, completely shredded and unusable. I saw my lower abdomen soaked in blood. I crawled backwards roughly 7 feet because I thought I was still in harm's way. My body was overwhelmed from the trauma of the blast. My abdomen had been ripped open. Every inch of my exposed body, except for my face, took ball bearings shrapnel. I tried to get up but could not. Laying there for a few minutes, I started to lose consciousness when I heard Chaz, my team leader, screaming my name as he ran to me. His voice calling to me kept me awake. When he got to me, he dragged me to safety and immediately started triaging me, tying tourniquets on my limbs and doing anything he could to stop the bleeding and start plugging wounds with the help of the other Marines. I was awake through most of it, screaming, moaning, and cursing. I ask you to please ask me about getting shot at the tower in Abbey Gate and how no one wanted my report post-blast. Even NCIS and the FBI failed to interview me. Asked me to elaborate on my ordeal post-blast, and asked me about this one little girl and her family that I reunited. Our military members and veterans deserve our best because that is what we give to America. The withdrawal was a catastrophe in my opinion, and there was an inexcusable lack of accountability and negligence.
Yeah.
The 11 Marines, 1 sailor, and 1 soldier that were murdered that day have not been answered for. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak.
It's really hard to watch.
Yep.
And they didn't want to hear it. There's why. They don't care. They don't care. And they don't want to hear that they did anything wrong because they accept no personal responsibility. And this is the photo of him checking his watch when those heroes came back to this country in caskets. Catastrophe is too nice a word for what occurred in Afghanistan during the withdrawal. You know, we send these guys over there to do a job for us, to protect our country, and then we don't let them do it. Whole thing could have been prevented. They could have shot him right there on the spot and stopped this attack before it killed 13 of our finest. It's just so despicable. And they continue to get away with it, and they continue to say that it was as good a job as anybody could have ever done. And they continue to lay the blame elsewhere. And they continue not to accept 1 ounce of responsibility or have any accountability for anything, for any disaster that they're responsible for. And they're responsible for all of them. All the disasters that have occurred in the last couple of years.
It's absolutely shameful.
It's all the Biden administration. It's way beyond shameful. I mean, there's no words in English to describe the outrage you feel and the incompetence and sheer buffoonery of this administration. Wow. Heartbreaking. To anybody who has served this country, thank you so much for your service.
Yes.
Pray for better actions on the part of our leader because you don't deserve what they're giving you.